I've been an IT tech for more than 20 years, and I hadn't actually rethought. I mean, there was no cloud when I got started, so I never really rethought from the beginning what you do for a disaster. And I grew up when you were rotating tapes and all kinds of stuff. And anyway, you just go by habit. And then, okay, for background, my office is in Ventura, California. Probably most of you've heard about the Thomas Fire. Um, December 4th, it started in Santa Paula. It flew across the city of Ventura at speeds of up to 1 acre a second. Now you're talking about people getting out of the way very quickly. Some of them had 5, 10, 15 minutes to get out of their homes. So things just got really, really nasty very quickly. And the Ventura, the city that my office is in, was actually the hardest hit. We lost more houses, buildings, whatever, as the Thomas Fire went on its way. And then, of course, if that wasn't enough, about a month later, we had a very gentle rain, but it started mudslides in Santa Barbara. It killed 20 people, destroyed more than 100 homes. That was on top of the 1,000 structures and the 2 lives lost to the fire itself. And after dealing with clients who lost all that stuff, we figured out really nobody was prepared. Not me, not my clients, not anybody. And so that started a complete rethink. The people in our office started doing rethinking. I started interviewing customers about what happened. And anyway, first thing is, what was wrong with my old advice? Well, I had allowed users and businesses to keep their backups in their homes and offices. I had clients who were, rotating their CDs, DVDs, flash drives, whatever it was they were backing up to. Then they would take them home from the office, or they take them to an office, or moving them around in some manner, shape, or form. That turned out not to be the greatest solution ever, because in some cases they lost everything anyway. Okay. Yeah, I hadn't considered that the same event could wipe out both home and office, and it did in a couple of cases. And I hadn't put any thought into what happens if a client doesn't survive the disaster. We had fortunately, none of my clients actually died in the disaster out of the 22 total. Well, one of them was a fireman, but I did have a client who died very shortly after the flood, and as a result, I had some problems getting everything for his heirs, and I realized that this could have easily been one of my clients from the disaster. And so, anyway, we started thinking about it. Now, the one thing in talking to all of the people and doing the exit discovery, whatever, about 12 of my customers who were, forced mandatory evacuations, only one of them lost his house, but the rest of them had to come back. And they all had somewhat the same story. And that is, when they were told to evacuate quickly and they were wandering around the house thinking this might be the last time they ever saw the house, they were walking in a daze. Some of them were just laughing about the stuff that they took with them, and they couldn't believe what they left behind. Nobody was thinking correctly. Nobody was working correctly. The cars never got filled. They ran out of time because they were just wandering kind of aimlessly. And so my takeaway from that is, if you don't have a written plan, you don't have time to think about it, you're going to be in trouble come the disaster. So anyway, what I want everybody to do is write a plan of what you're going to take, where it is, and tape it to the refrigerator or whatever, figure out what'll fit in the car, get a list, post it up, and it doesn't matter. I mean, I'm in California, we got wildfires and we got earthquakes, but if you're in the Midwest, you got tornadoes, and you go someplace else, you got earthquakes, hurricanes. We all got disasters someplace. start thinking about it, because evacuation happens everywhere in the country. So anyway, now, yeah, the usual things for what to do before evacuating: shut off the gas and electricity. Put a note on the front door that everybody's evacuated safely. That saves the people coming around to tell everybody to evacuate, that they can go to the next house more rapidly and give somebody else some extra time. If you take two cars, agree upon a meeting place, and if your cellular service is working, keep the phones connected. The one person who died in the Thomas fire, she and her husband were vacating from one of the valleys, one of the canyons, and she got lost in the smoke. She couldn't see, and she ran into a ditch. The car turned over, and she was killed. She didn't apparently die right away. The husband did not know until he got to the center, the disaster center, and couldn't find his wife, and then found out later that she died. Had they been communicating on cellular service, they might have been able to do something. Don't know, but that's just something to keep in the back of your mind. If you're taking two cars because you want to take a bunch of junk, that's fine, but stay connected. And you won't be able to see necessarily, and that could be earthquake, that could be tornado, and that can be fire, but doesn't matter. Anyway, but the biggest problem in terms of my IT work is that nobody had good data backups. That's not 100% true, but mostly true. Yeah, you need your on-site backups, and you still need them. I mean, if your hard drive dies, you want to be able to restore from a backup, and you'd like to have a full system backup, an image backup, if you will. But when the fire burned, it burned everything. We had two clients who lost cash in their safe, and they were fire safes. One of them in the ground, in the foundation. But even though it was in the foundation, the fire, when it burned, was so hot that it just melted everything in there. There was nothing usable. Jewelry and that sort of thing were just lumps, and the cash that was in there was just ash, and any flash drives or anything like that was just pretty much gone. They had little teeny weeny pieces of melt, but you aren't going to get anything out of even a fire safe of usable data. And in thinking it over, I have now come to the conclusion that you have to have cloud backup. You just have to have it. And I know people say, well, I don't trust Microsoft, or I don't trust Apple, or I don't trust Google, or I don't trust. It doesn't matter. The problem is that you've got much greater potential for viruses or other malware on your computer stealing your data than you have losing your data to the big cloud providers. They have very excellent security stuff. I will never tell you that it can't be hacked, but so far none of them have been hacked. And all of the loss of data has come from clients, not from the vendors. So if we're going to talk about odds, the odds are overwhelming that if you lose data, it'll come at your end. It won't come at the cloud end. And you never can get 100% safe in IT. You can't. The only thing you can do is maximize your safety. And in terms of maximization, you have to face the fact you're not as safe as Microsoft or Google or Apple or Dropbox or whomever. They're not 100% safe. Something can be hacked. I know that. I get that. But the biggest problem is you at your end, me at my end. My office has been burgled twice. Fortunately, they didn't grab the tape backups, but they could have. The biggest issue is you or me, but it's not Microsoft, Google, Apple, whomever. So just suck it up and do it. You got important data. You just have to back it up, and it's got to go to the cloud. Okay, now how do you back up? What works best? For most home users, a dedicated cloud backup program like Carbonite or Mosey works best. You do need to make sure that you may have it back up all of the folders that you need, that you have data in. But once you have that, and then you also make sure that they usually put a little icon down in the system tray, and you got to make sure it doesn't go orange or red or whatever their emergency color is, that it stays green or blue. But as long as you're fairly careful about the backup going, and maybe once a month or maybe once a quarter, depending on how much data you have, you go and restore a file or two from your backup to make sure that it's working and that you know how to get your data. You really want to do that. The other choice, and that works better for people who have multiple computers and are working on a lot of different things, is to get a Microsoft OneDrive, a Google Drive, an Apple iCloud, or a generic Dropbox. There are some other services I'll talk about in a minute, but that's the idea. And in those, what happens is you essentially create a folder that's backed up to the cloud. And then in that folder, you put your My Documents, your My Videos, your My Photos, your My whatever that your computer has. They all go into that master folder, and then everything there is backed up. If you use Dropbox, it's pretty much the same thing. Now, I will advise you, if you do that, to stay with your ecosystem. If you are a Microsoft Office user, use OneDrive. If you are a Google Docs user, use Google Drive. If you are exclusively Apple, use the Apple iCloud. The issue I have is Apple doesn't have very many tools. You won't share your iCloud data with an Android phone or an Android tablet. So you need to be careful about that one. Apple's a little more exclusive. But if you're an exclusive Apple user, use the iCloud. And if you're just kind of agnostic, you can use Dropbox. But anyway, you can use all of those. The one advantage to those is, and I'll give myself as an example, you kind of figure out how this works for you. But I have a computer at the office, I have a computer at home, I have a tablet, I have a laptop, I have a phone, and all of these devices are connected together to the same account, and all of them can get all of the same data. They don't, but they can. My tablet doesn't have a very large hard drive. Well, it's not a hard drive, but anyway, drive. And so I only very carefully select a couple of subfolders within my OneDrive folder to sync with my tablet. Same with my phone. But my office computer, the desktop, and my home desktop computers sync everything. So I can work at home or I can work at the office equally easily because all of the data is there. The one thing to recognize in this is the master copy is in OneDrive. If the master copy is in the cloud. If I lose the internet, if something goes down on the internet, I can work offline. But as soon as I get connected to the internet, it will attempt to sync up. Those take a little bit more thought and a little bit more crafting in order to use. If you are just a single computer user, you're probably better off with Carbonite or Mosey. They're $60 a year or so for backup. But anyway, and then of course, if you really are into, big time backup, if you have a lot of data, you have a lot of stuff, there are third-party software companies that are clients of Amazon Web Services, S3 service, or Microsoft Azure, or other raw cloud data storage companies like Rackspace or somebody like that. And the third-party software companies will allow you to will have software that will back up to these. If you're using huge amounts of data, they can be much less expensive, but they're not. That's basically a medium-sized company solution, not pretty much individuals. But in case somebody's listening or reading this, I did want to cover that. Okay, now what do you need to back up? Now we're talking about cloud backup now. Cloud backup, you're not going to back up the image of your computer. If your computer dies, you want to back up from your local image file, a folder, image copy. But if you lose everything, you lose your computer, your house, or whatever is gone in a disaster, you go out and buy a new computer, you need to get all your data back. And this is what we're talking about that you're going to have from your cloud backup. You want to have all of your documents, anything you have in your My Documents folder or on your desktop, if a lot of people put everything on the desktop, your pictures, your email that is not online. If you're using a POP3 email client, you want to save your email up there. Otherwise, you're going to lose it all because the POP3 doesn't keep a copy for forever. Okay, music and video if irreplaceable. I know I had one customer tell me, "Oh, I don't do video," and then he had a problem, and we did get it back, but we almost lost his daughter's wedding video. Well, that wouldn't have been good. He might have been able to get a copy from her, but anyway, yeah, a lot of people don't think that they have anything irreplaceable, but then when they come in the office and the hard drives died, they start crying. And you go, you told me it wasn't important. Just, I've had that happen enough. Think about it honestly, and figure out what you need to back up. And basically the rule of thumb is anything you would miss if it were gone forever, get it backed up to the cloud. Now the last one is a little tricky. You've got to back up somehow your login and password pairs, username and password, account name and password, whatever it is in the URL, the place it goes. The reason you have to do that is if you have a disaster and you lose your computer and you don't know how to get back into your bank account, into your insurance, into your club account, into this account, into that account, into Facebook, in this day and age, most of us have 30, 40, 50 things that we log into and have username and passwords for. How are you going to get back in? So many people tell me, "Oh, well, don't worry, my computer saves it." Well, yeah, but what happens when the computer goes down? If you don't have and writing it down doesn't do any good. That went in the fire too. So how are you going to get back in? How are you keeping it? And and this comes back. Nobody likes to talk about this stuff, but if you die, how do your heirs find anything? Or even if you have nothing, how do you get back to finding everything? And the best practice is to use a cloud-based password manager like LastPass or RoboForm. RoboForm's been very good. I know our club has periodic, we get copies of RoboForm we can hand out as door prizes or whatever. LastPass is free, so you can do that one for free. But you want to have a cloud-based password manager. All right, now I have LastPass. I've got my daughter, long married. She's got kids. My granddaughter's married, so don't have any kids yet, grandkids, but great grandkids. But anyway, my daughter, who is going to be the administrator of the estate, has my LastPass entry on her computer, which is 100 miles away. If I were to go in an earthquake and she were still alive, she would be able to log into my LastPass, but the catch is she can't get into my LastPass unless I haven't used the account for a week. So she has the entry there, it sits there, she can click on it and it'll go, time hasn't passed, you can't get in yet. So I can keep her out for as long as I'm alive, or as long as I'm entering into my LastPass, my password manager, which I use every day because that's how I get into all my programs. So as long as I'm getting into my programs, even on my phone, doesn't matter. Use LastPass to open up something. The counter starts over again, and she can't get in for a week. And a variable name or a length of time. I can make it a month if I wanted to, but she might need to get into stuff if something happens to me. So I did a week, and that. So anyway, but you want to have some way that your heirs, somebody can get in, give them a paper copy of your LastPass master password or your RoboForm master password. You have to do something, because if you don't, and you and your computers are wiped out, nobody's going to find anything. And I had a client, the one that I said just died right after the flood. He had been using KeePass. KeePass, if you don't know the master password, you're not getting in. And he didn't write it down anywhere that anybody could find. So but he had recently switched over to LastPass, but he hadn't let anybody have a thing. But LastPass does have a thing where you can log in with the computer that you've used before and get a new password. They don't know what your old password is, but they can put up a new password. So that worked, and I was able to get in. And then it turned out he owned property in, I think it was Montana, but anyway, another state. I mean, we're in California, so nobody in his family knew that he owned the property in Montana, but he had records for it in the stuff that they discovered in his password manager. They found savings accounts that he had. They found all kinds of stuff they would never have found if they hadn't been able to get into the password manager. So think about that, and think about the problem you create for your heirs if something happens to you. And I know nobody wants to think about it, but you know, I got forced, and that's what this program's about. So that's what I'm going to talk about. Anyway, let everybody know how to get to your master password. And you know, if you put it in a safe deposit box, yeah, okay, hopefully it's some distance from you, because at least out here in earthquake country, probably my safe deposit box, which is about 10 blocks from my house, is going to go when my house goes. But give some thought to it, and figure it out, and come up with a plan and make it work. And have a talk with family, people that you trust. Have a talk and get it solved. And I just can't tell you how important that is, because you're never going to get it done after the problem. So anyway, now we'll talk about some of you on restricted budget. You go, well, I really don't want to pay some money a year for cloud backup. Well, you can get 15 gigabytes from Google Drive. That's the best deal going. Box will give you 10 gigabytes. OneDrive gives you 5 gigabytes. If you're a student, they'll give you a terabyte. How do I know? I don't know. Anyway, if you have iCloud, you can get 5 gig. Dropbox is 2 gigs. You can get up to 16 gigabytes if you introduce people or do some things that promote Dropbox. You can get up to 16 gigabytes, but it takes a lot of work, and it takes a fair amount of time. Amazon Drive, if you are a Prime member, you get 5 gigabytes of storage plus unlimited photos. The unlimited photos is pretty nice for some people. So if you're an Amazon Prime member, do remember the unlimited photos, because for a lot of people, the photos are the single largest block of data, and you can add that to your Amazon Prime stuff, and then back up everything else to a Google Drive or something like that. Just depends on what fits. The biggest bargain going is the Microsoft Office 365 Home for home users. You get 5 user accounts, and that includes the entire Office suite for each account. And then each account you can install on 5 devices. So my account I have installed on my home computer, my work computer, my tablet, my laptop, and my phone. Okay, that's 5 of them. I got 5 of them. So on each, I can have a total of 1 terabyte of data, and it costs $99. But it's 5 user accounts. so my wife has one. I have a daughter still living at home. So we used up 3 of them. I've given one of them to a grandchild. And I've got one that I haven't used yet. I don't know, just haven't had a chance. But now we're talking about 5 terabytes total of data. We're talking about 5 full office suites, and the annual cost is $99. Combination of Microsoft Office and the cloud backup for $99, that is by far the best deal going. Not everybody has terabytes of data. Not everybody needs the Office suite. But if that comes close to fitting your needs, that you won't do better than that. Okay. Now, let's take a little summary here. While we still need the local full image backups, data must always be saved offline. You can't get around that. It is just an absolute must. And the passwords have to be saved offsite somehow. Think that one through. You're going to have a little bit of trust with other people, or you're going to have to figure out some way of forcing them to have trust. But one way or another, you've got to have some trust. And all of your account logins have to be made available for errors in case something happens to you. And it's hard thinking about it. It's hard figuring it out. But hopefully I've given you enough head start onto it that you can kind of begin to think it through and begin to figure out, what we've got and where you're going. Now I'm going to open it up for questions. I'm going to give you, David gave it in the intro a little bit about us. Our website is cipsug.org. My email is tech@cipsug.org, but you can see it down there. CIPCUG. That's Channel Islands PC User Group.org. And for any of you who don't know the Channel Islands for Western United States, anyway, are the islands that are offshore Southern California, up to Central California, and we are located essentially west of Los Angeles, and everybody thinks that's north, but if you go look at a map, it actually swings way west before the shoreline goes north. Anyway, so that's where we're located. If you go to cipsug.org, I put up links to the podcast that I do every week, comes out on Tuesday. So you can just get a link there and you can click on it and you can go there. If you go to, if you're on Facebook, you can go to Facebook and then do a search for groups. We're a group, and just type in Cipsug and you'll get that link and click on that. Because we've had some problems with people trying to spam us, you have to be authenticated to get in so we can delete you if you start spamming us. But anyway, just ask to join the group and you'll be up and within a day or less. And you can participate in that. And incidentally, you're free to ask questions on the Facebook page. I cull the questions from the Facebook page and then use them in my podcast. So generally speaking, if you ask a question on the Facebook page, you can get an answer in the podcast within a week. And that sometimes is pretty nice stuff for people who have some kind of, not absolutely pressing need, but reasonably current need. So we can answer questions and all that sort of stuff. And it's a fairly useful site. We've got a bunch of stuff on there. You're welcome to poke around. And if you have any questions, you can get me at tech@cipsug.org. Okay. And David, I think I'm about ready for questions. Are you there? Oops. Well, I guess I'll keep talking. All right, let's go back to one of the earlier slides.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, I can hear you now.
Okay.
Oh, good.
I got too many buttons to unpush.
Okay.
The one thing is that the suggestion, as I said, I just invite everybody to look at the chat. We have about 3 different suggestions. People making recommendations.
Sure.
One person recommended carbonite, and others were not too happy with. They said Apple didn't give you enough. But
well, yeah, okay. Yeah, when I said the probably the best solution for an individual at home, a home user not doing anything for an office, the easiest and best is either Carbonite or Mozy. I'm a Carbonite and a Mozy reseller, but mostly I resell Mozy. I've had better luck with Mozy than with Carbonite, but they're very similar, and whatever works for you is fine.
Okay, I'll ask one question. What's
sure.
your opinion of iDrive backup?
The iDrive backup, yeah. First of all, it's only 5 gigabytes, which is the same as what OneDrive gives you, which is really not adequate for pretty much anybody. I mean, almost all of us in this day and age have more than 5 gigabytes worth of data. The one problem I have with iDrive is that there is no Android app. You cannot back up. You cannot get your data back or whatever, coordinate with iDrive if you have any kind of Android tablet or phone. And so, sometimes you have husband and wife, and one of them has an iPhone and the other one has an Android phone. That doesn't work. You have to think about it. I talked about you need to think about your ecosystem. If you're going to use iDrive, you need to be pretty much an exclusive Apple user. You have to have a Mac if you have a desktop. You have to have an iPhone. You have to have iPad and so on. If you have anything else, it isn't as satisfactory a solution. They just are more restrictive and less egalitarian, if that's the correct word. And so, I'm not a fan of iDrive. Also, if you have any problems, they're much more difficult to troubleshoot.
Okay. I misspoke on. I got to figure out the name of this stupid thing. It's not. It's a different backup system, and I can't find. It gives me. I got 1 terabyte of backup.
Okay.
And I actually. No, it's called iDrive. It's not an Apple product. It was a Windows product. Because it said
iDrive?
iDrive.
The iDrive is an Apple product. Now, because so many Apple users have Windows computers, they do have an app or a program that will work on iDrive with a regular computer.
Yeah. Well, as I said, I think this is a tad bit different. Because you said I've got a terabyte. It's not associated with Apple.
It's not.
No, it got it because
I'm sorry. It's iCloud. I'm iDrive. Yes. Okay. I got it. I'm thinking of iCloud. I'm sorry.
Yeah, iDrive, as it said, gives you 1 terabyte.
Yeah.
And also, as I said, luckily, what happens is that when I bought it, I got a terabyte hard drive, wireless connection. For free. So, and it backs up, I think, 3 computers or 4 computers. Again, it doesn't do Android. But it does for me, and, it's just as good as anything else.
Yeah, how much, what do they charge?
$69 a year.
$69 a year, okay.
Not really all that bad. And I said I also got a Cronus that I back up to an external.
Sure.
So
I missed a point. In addition to the Office 365 Home, they also have Office 365 Personal, and that's $80, $79.95 or whatever. And that gives you one account with 5 devices and a terabyte of data, which, for $20 more, you can get 4 more devices and data, but not everybody needs it. But anyway, you get for the same price as the iDrive, you get you could get your terabyte of data backup on OneDrive, and you would have a free copy of Office.
I got that too.
Yeah, okay. Well, not everybody does. So
I know.
I'm not talking just to you. But
yeah,
yes.
I know.
Okay.
It is that I have a trouble of seeing a program that I just don't, I can't live without.
Yeah. Those of us who get married to Office just really don't want to switch.
Yeah. So,
yeah.
I got enough storage. I could store anything and everything, and I don't have that much stuff to store.
Well, I'm over the terabyte limit. I've got to have stuff stored on my wife's computer. I share stuff with my wife and then put it on her computer so that she can use it in her cloud.
Yeah, well, you got kids and grandkids, and that's also
yeah. Well, yeah. Also, my son is a university professor, English, teaches writing, and is a voluminous writer, published all kinds of places, and so when we start talking about cloud backup, we're talking about large amounts. My wife is working on a sort of a biography, fictionalized biography, and that with all of the various versions and copies and stuff going back and forth, that works out to be about 300 gigabytes. Just all by itself. So,
you're the backup expert.
Well, I've been forced.
Yeah. Well, it just shows you that there's an awful lot of backups out there, and if people look and choose, they can find something that suits themselves in their price range.
Yeah. Any other questions?
Okay. Well, one of the things someone wanted to know was, when you're talking about this, between the file backups and image backups.
Okay. All right. That's actually something that I probably should have covered. Okay. An image backup is, think of it as a large zip drive or something like that, and it contains everything that's on your computer. If you have multiple hard drives, it's all your hard drives. It's your operating system. It's everything. If your computer were to die, you could create a new computer, similar computer anyway, and you could restore from the image file, and you would have not just all of your data back, but you would have the operating system, you would have all of the installed programs you had before with all of your registrations and all of the rest of this stuff. You would basically have your computer back, but it would be a different computer. But all of your settings, everything would be there, all of your data, at least as of the last image backup. Image backups take a fair amount of time, and if you ever tried to restore from the cloud, you would discover it would take you 3 weeks to get that image file to come down to your computer and restore it on a new computer. The image file is not useful for cloud backup because of the sizes that you're talking about and how long it takes for downloads. So you don't want to do an image backup to the cloud, but if something happens that's local, your hard drive dies, your computer dies, whatever, you'd like to be able to restore everything to a new computer or a new hard drive, image backup works great. Okay. The problem is that a fire or flood or whatever that wiped out your computer is going to wipe out your image backup also, because they're local. In order to have it fast and ready at hand, it's got to be either a NAS device network attached storage, which is something on your network but is across the room from you, or maybe in another room in the house, and you can then back up to that, and you can then restore from it quite easily.
Okay.
But the thing that's really important, and people don't realize this, but the thing that's really important is your data. I've got my tax returns, going back 20 years, I've been using TurboTax since somewhere in the 90s. And I've got all my tax returns. Well, they go up into the cloud. So even if my tax returns here burn, all my paper records, I have my tax return in the cloud. So it's the data that's the important thing. All of the pictures of my kids growing up, grandkids that when they came to visit and all the rest of that. I'd be heartbroken if I lost all that stuff. It's all in the cloud. My mother-in-law, who died in 2011, was a concert pianist. She used to do recitals at our house. I recorded a bunch of stuff that she did just playing in the house. I can't replace that. All of us have stuff we have committed to electronic storage that we would be devastated if we lost. And most of us haven't thought through what that stuff is. And you need to think it through and figure out and get it backed up. Silliest one I ever had. We had a client came in. He was completely out of hard disk space on his hard drive. We said, why don't we can get you a bigger hard drive. Doesn't cost anything, hardly. Why did you wait? Well, yeah, okay. A bunch of excuses. And we said, okay, well, we'll get your stuff. So we got it all cleared up, got him about 20 gigabytes free, and he came in and he took it home, and then he called us up and he said, where are my wedding photos? We said, well, I don't know. Where were they? We didn't look at every single file on his computer, for heaven's sakes. We were just, they were in the recycle bin. You put your wedding photos in the recycle bin? That was the first thing we did to get you space on the hard drive. That's still, I can't believe that somebody actually did that. But all of his wedding photos are gone. He'd given out a few to friends, and that's all they've got left from his wedding. That's unbelievable. But while that's unbelievable, I have had enough people come in. They get a hard drive that died. They have this problem or that problem, and you go, what is it you had? And then they go, oh, well, where's my? And you go, well, did you back it up? I don't know. I think so. And inevitably, I think so means no. When you're in this situation, I think so virtually always means no. They didn't back it up. They wanted to. They wish they had. They hoped they did and forgot about it, but it always means no, they didn't. And you just, I can't tell you the number of times you have somebody crying in your office because the hard drive died. We can't get the data off. Maybe we can get the data off if we send it to data recovery at prices starting at $1,000. They got to figure out whether it's really worth $1,000 to get back whatever it was. People don't think about what's valuable to them. But the data you have on your computer, even if you think it's not important, I guarantee you've got something you would be devastated if you lost on your computer. You can tell me to look at computer you need, you're lying to yourself and to me. That's just the way it is. I've just been around that barn way too many times. You spent 20 plus years doing this. You just know it's going to happen. Sometime in the next month or two, somebody's going to come in and be just sick that they lost something that they wanted to have and should have known that they were going to want to have, and they lost it. And And you need to kind of go over this stuff on a regular basis because you get new hobbies, you get new interests, you got new projects, you got new stuff. If it isn't being backed up, you're just setting yourself up for a fall. Back up. And it's not backed up unless you have 3 copies. Okay? You have to have your computer, you have to have a local backup, image backup maybe, and then you have to have a cloud backup. 3 places, and one of them's got to be away from you. And if it isn't backed up. You're setting yourself up for disaster. But, yeah. And the Thomas fire and the clients that lost everything. We had clients who lost their home. They lost all kinds of stuff. They lost cash in the safe, but they walked into the office with 2 desktop computers that they had brought in. Lost the monitors, lost the keyboards, lost the mice, lost the image backup, lost all the other stuff, but they brought the boxes in. We just plugged in keyboard, mouse. They were working in our office for a little while. Eventually, they got into a temporary place. They moved in. We sold them monitors, keyboard, and mouse, and they were off and running. They were back up and running. But holy moly, was that a close call because they didn't have cloud backup. So anyway, yeah. That's backups. Nobody wants to think about dying. Nobody wants to think about backups. And then when you need the solution, it's never there. And I can't tell you how strongly I feel about that, but you probably figured it out by now. But if I get 1 or 2 of you to do a backup into the cloud, I will be very happy.